Come along, come along. You a hot thing. Question asked by Come along, come along. I'm gonna let everybody get in here. You know I'm trying to pin a tweet. Let's see. I think I got it. All right. You know the drill. I kept it simple. You know the drill. Every live, I tell you to DM me something. Follow New Energy and DM me something that you didn't know before the live that you now know. Jemele Hill is going to be brought on here in a little bit, so a lot of people know a lot of things about her. Hopefully I ask some questions that give you something new that you didn't know about her. So, and then let's see what else. Oh, it's a ball. It's one of those frozen balls where you put it in the freezer, and it's in replacement of an ice cup. So if you know what an ice cup is, it's basically in replacement of an ice cup. Jemele, when you are in here, let me know. Let me know. Send your request when you're ready. As you know, every time we will be playing Cuzzo's song. Cuzzo is Angel McCautry. I have her permission. Oh, Jemele Hill is in the building. So, oh yeah, and I feel like she doesn't need an introduction. She's that type of person. But if you don't know, she has podcasts. She's been on TV. Damian Lillard, listen, whenever you ready, I'm ready, all right? So, Jemele, send that request. But she's big lit. I'm excited because I'm actually a fan. So, what up, Tati? Let's see here. There we go. We're going to bring her on. Pause, Cuzzo. Let's get it. This is fun. Come on, wife. Okay. Yes.
What's going on?
Hell, thank you for doing this live with me.
It's a pleasure, and I did it selfishly so that people can see us both in the same place and realize we're not the same person.
Listen, before, that's how I got introduced to who you were. Somebody tweeted me back when Twitter was like popping, and somebody's like, yo, you got a twin that's like in TV and stuff, and I'm like, who is she? And that's exactly, let me lower this because I don't like that, so let's lower this. There we go. And that's exactly how we got started. So thank you. We are not the same person.
Nope.
And I'm glad they think I'm you.
Same. I was like, there's a lot of times when people tell you look like people, and then you see the people, you're like, now come on now. I don't look nothing like them.
Now,
right.
I do not look like her.
Yeah, you get mad. So at least I was like, oh, I could be happier with this one.
Listen, hi, twin.
Hey, what's going on? And then to later find out that we actually have mutual friends in common.
Shouts to Jamaica.
Yeah, and Donkey.
Shouts to Donkey.
Right.
Oh, you know,
yes,
like,
and Ev.
When they saw this, by the way, they were like, yes, my two faves. Like, and I'm like, oh, wow. Like, I found out I was people's fave through you. So really, I think they're saying you're their fave.
I don't know about that.
But all right, so I start with usually 2 fan questions, and I'm going to start calling this the Boston Johanna question of the day because she asked such good questions. But she wants to know, what would it take to get Colin Kaepernick back into the NFL?
An act from God, probably. I don't see it happening, and it's a shame. I feel every time I say that, it makes me feel bad because Colin has worked his whole life to be a professional football player. I'm a 49ers fan. You see that 49ers helmet back there. He took us to the Super Bowl, and he, much like any athlete, yourself, included, is that you work very hard for a dream and to have it taken away. It's one thing if it's injury. It's one thing, you know what I'm saying? Like if it's injury, or if for some reason you weren't as good as other players in the league and it was taken away from a natural, kind of natural causes. But for this dream to have been removed from him just because he stood out, or spoke out, makes it that much tougher. But the NFL owners basically don't have any courage. They're afraid of Donald Trump. And so he's not going to be back in the league. And, it's part of why I find their efforts to social justice, to care about social justice now, to be very hollow, because the biggest example of how they could have stood up for social justice was Colin Kaepernick, and they didn't do that. So it's hard for me to take anything else that they do from here on out seriously. They didn't even care about social justice issues until Colin Kaepernick. And so it just is it's more than just disappointing. It's when documentaries are done from this years later and the NFL is going to try to change the story and try to act like this didn't happen.
Everybody's going to wonder what side you fell on when it was happening. So
precisely,
you fell on the right side of things. Yes. Excellent question. Thank you. And I'm going to wait for the second question a little later down on the line. But I do know that you just recently got married last year.
I did.
Congratulations. You had a show. Congratulations. And I wanted to say, I know you're into hip hop. How did it feel to marry into the Wallace name?
Right, because the only Christopher we acknowledge is Wallace, right?
Okay, I was going to just make sure. How did it feel to marry into? Now it's a historic name. We like to find Notorious.
Which know is so funny because I have on a Pac shirt right now, so you can love them both. All right.
Oh yeah, definitely.
No, you can love them both. But no, I mean, getting married was fantastic. I mean, it was definitely the best day of my life. We had an amazing wedding. I was definitely not the little girl that sat there and planned her wedding, but had I been that little girl, it would have been the wedding.
It would have been the wedding that you had planned if you was little Jemele. Okay.
Yes, it would have been.
Ian, the hubby. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Speaking of little Jemele, what did Mumford High School Jemele want to be when she grew up?
She wanted to be a sports journalist, and I fell into a very unique category of people in the sense that I was somebody who knew early on what I wanted to do, and everything I've done has been in pursuit of that. A lot of times, it's quite normal for people to change their minds 2 or 3 times about what their career pursuit will be. Like, I mean, how many people are like police officer, fireman, lawyer, you know what I'm saying? It's like you go through a certain trajectory in terms of what you want to do before you finally settle on something. But early on, it was 2 things that I love: sports and writing. And so, back then you had to read the newspapers to keep up with your hometown team. So for me to keep up with the Tigers and the Pistons, I had to read the newspaper. And so that helped me develop a love for newspapers. So I wrote for my high school newspaper. I majored in journalism. I wrote for my college newspaper. I had a bunch of internships. Before I got to ESPN in 2006, I had a full career in sports journalism.
Get into it. I know. Because I felt like you are the sports journalist, so I had to do my just do and research and make sure. So who were some of your influences in the route of sports journalism per se?
Well, because I was a print journalist, I never imagined having a television career. So most of my early heroes were all print journalists. So Michael Wilbon, for example, who was a great writer. A woman named Claire Smith, who was the only Black woman in the country covering baseball. She was covering it, I believe, for the New York Times at that point. And so a lot of the people I looked up to were writers. Donna Britt, who was a fantastic columnist for the Washington Post, who I read religiously in college. Leonard Pitts Jr., another fantastic columnist, out of Miami. So those were the people whose writing I was just absorbing so much. And I wanted to be so thoughtful, just like they were. And, obviously as I progressed, and especially as more television came into the picture, that's when I started looking at people like Stuart Scott and Robin Roberts and some of the names that are more familiar to people. Okay,
so you started in Raleigh News and Observer. You was there for 6 years. Then you moved.
No. I was on there 2 years. 2 years.
2 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. Come on. And then you moved to the Detroit Free Press.
I was there 6 years.
6 years there. Got it. Okay. Orlando Center. But basically, you eventually landed at ESPN. But how did you make the jump from you were a writer to now I'm on camera? Like, that's not an easy jump to make.
It was purely by accident. It was because I was too stupid to know better. I mean, to be honest. Yeah, no, because I never, print journalists. For a long time, we had a very Bloods Crips relationship with TV people, right? So we used to make fun. We used to make fun.
No,
of TV
I don't
people.
know about it. Tell us, because if I don't know, I know a lot of people don't know. Tell me about it. I don't know why.
So us print reporters, we considered ourselves to be the real journalists, right? We're not all fancy with our makeup and our TV clothes, and so we out there, man on the street with notebooks in hand, trying to get to the truth, to the bottom of the story. So it was just frowned upon for print journalists to be TV journalists. Like that marriage wasn't even a thing then.
So you were kind of like a little traitor at first. Did you feel like torn then? Like,
listen, I feel like a traitor till I saw that money. Because the one thing that definitely is true, the one thing that's definitely true, they do not pay TV people like they pay print reporters. Okay, it's only so much you can make being a print journalist. You can make infinite amount of money being in TV.
You better. So listen, that actually brings, so that brings me to SportsCenter is iconic. Like everybody, people that don't even know sports know SportsCenter. So walk me through what it was like to get that call with your co-host Michael Smith that y'all are going to be hosting like SportsCenter.
So the way it went down was it was purely kind of by accident.
You didn't know.
Yes, I'm the most accidental failing up, if you want to call it that, person for about a 4 or 5 year period in my career. So what happened was this: we were hosting a daily show called His and Hers on ESPN2, and we were really coming into our own there. We were doing all kind of goofy things you shouldn't be doing on television, skits and dressing up and
it was lit. It was like Dave Chappelle sports version, like it was like all of that. Like I liked it.
I'll take that compliment. Okay, I'll accept. I will definitely accept that. So we were kind of just doing our thing, and we had sort of inquired about just maybe filling in one time just to co-host SportsCenter together. That was it. And so we asked the guy in charge of SportsCenter right then. We were just like, hey, we should fill in one of these days when people are on vacation, whatever. And he was like, well, instead of filling in, how would you guys feel about hosting SportsCenter? We were like, oh, that's funny. So we were like,
excuse me, say what?
Now. Yeah, exactly. It's like, what? And so we had some follow-up conversations, and they were looking to revamp and reshape the 6 o'clock SportsCenter, and they asked Mike and I to host it. And it was never something that we thought of. Both of us never, we did anchor on a daily basis, but being a SportsCenter anchor is a little bit different.
Yeah, that's like the big league. That's what I said. Like, that's the big leagues, and you're telling me you just fell into it. No, so let me, she's given a lot of humble pie, so let me just backtrack because His and Hers ended up like basically just being viral, and everybody was tuning into it so much so that the people at ESPN was like, we're on to something here. Let's give them more. So that's the backstory. She said it accidentally happened, but they were probably already looking at you guys' numbers and looking at you guys like, this is amazing. We need more. So that's the backstory to what she's trying to say she fell into. No, that's not how it works. And so that actually brings me to my second fan question of the day. Jay Mills said, since it's mental health awareness month, being that you were such a mainstay at ESPN, when you detached from them, how did you mentally and emotionally deal with it in your personal and professional life?
Oh, that is a really good question. And I'm telling you, that's a strong question. Yeah, and I've never been actually asked that before. I think at first I went through a little ESPN PTSD. I mean, I was there for 12 years, and my toughest years were the last 2 that I was there, because it started with SportsCenter, and as much of a kind of destination job that is, I was quite miserable doing the show, and so it was that. Then the Trump stuff happened. I got suspended. Like all this happened in the span of like a year.
It was a lot.
It was a lot going on, and so when I finally left, there was a lot that I had to kind of let go, and the hardest thing for me to let go wasn't ESPN itself. It was some of the things that happened in that last 1.5 to 2 years, mainly that, Mike and I, we had a great partnership. We're really good friends. And that partnership, it felt like it didn't end on our own terms. And it ended in a way that will never sit right with me. And so I had to kind of just get over that part. I couldn't redo it. Yeah. I made the decision to leave SportsCenter independent of Mike, but by me deciding to leave, it torpedoed the whole thing.
There's no His and Hers without her. So
exactly. So it wound up kind of disintegrating, if you will. And even before I left, the reason I left had nothing to do with Trump or nothing to do with the suspension. It had everything to do with the fact that creatively they would not let us do what got us to SportsCenter.
Right.
And we were at odds all the time with management, with the people in charge of our show about what was good television. And for that matter, what worked for us, how to bring out the best in us.
And
and it
that's why
didn't
I kind of
work.
compared it to the Dave Chappelle, because it is going to hit the hot topics and it's going to make light of hot topics. So that's kind of why I made that parallel, because Dave Chappelle isn't for everybody then. Like, you know what I mean? So once you
And
went,
he walked away. I mean, he walked
that's
away.
why, and that's
Yeah.
exactly why I kind of, it made me, so that's a very close parallel in the sense that you want to do it your way. So you're not.
Well, and the only difference being is that they didn't offer $50 million for us to
Okay,
stay.
but they didn't offer zero
They
either.
didn't offer
Okay,
zero. And look, and I tell people this all the time is that I constantly get the question. I even saw it in the responses here about, well, why didn't you guys just stay on his and hers? The problem is this, is that it would not have made any sense. They were offering us a elevated platform. I mean, to give people an idea, let's say on a daily basis on his and hers, we probably average somewhere between 250 and 300,000 viewers per show. For noon on ESPN2, that's a nice amount of people. SportsCenter's ratings on the 6 o'clock hour, we're talking about 700,000. So you're doubling the amount of people who are watching the show. We were in a small, tiny studio that was an afterthought that looked like it cost them $50 to make. We then go from that studio N, and I won't tell you the jokes we used to say what N stood for, but that's beside the point. Use your imagination.
We can guess.
Use your imagination, because that's what we used to call it, the project. So at any rate, we go from that to a $17 million studio, right? Okay, at going to SportsCenter. So it was like being in the minor leagues and called up to the show. You don't turn down going to the show. You know what I'm saying? It's like you go.
That's
and not to mention,
that's why I asked, how did you feel when you, because that's no regular caller, that's no regular yes. Like for sports, that's like one of the pinnacles. Everybody
yeah.
like, you know, we all know it.
You're going to something iconic. And you know, and on the other thing too is that we're also talking about us getting new 4-year contracts, life-changing money. So that is also coming with it. So there was no way we were going to turn that opportunity down.
Absolutely not. No, completely understandable. And kind of to piggyback off of that, what are some challenges that you face being a Black female in the sports entertainment industry? Because I'm in it now too. So just what are some of those challenges?
Well, I think especially when you're in sports, and at least you have you have the fact that you played. Like that's going to be something that you could say, hey, here's my expertise is the buckets I gave people, right? Okay, my career stopped in high school, and I played fast pitch softball. I didn't play basketball because I didn't have a left. Whole story. But
I don't either. I mean, if
your left look a lot more credible than mine probably would ever look. But nevertheless, so I didn't have playing expertise, most women do not have that to bring to the table. I'd seen a bunch of games. I felt like I knew sports as much as anybody really. And it wasn't when I say, when I say knowing sports, I don't mean, stats and statistics. That's part of it. But I think you have to understand the game. You have to understand why things are happening and why they aren't happening. And so I understood that based off, not just me watching, but being in the company of a lot of great athletes, coaches, and you just learn from watching them and learn from watching great teams and up close and that sort of thing. So at any rate, with that being said, when you walk through the door, I already got two things working against me. I'm Black and I'm a woman. So one, they're going to assume that I'm there because, I don't know, I guess they people have this idea that the job fairy touches Black people, especially, even though we always have higher unemployment rates than any ethnic
and that's
group.
why I'm not going to let you sit up here and say that you accidentally got this stuff. No, you are good at what you do.
I mean, definitely I had to bring something to the table, but in terms of pursuing the opportunity, some of that just happened just by being at the right place at the right time and being prepared when those moments arose. Yes. And so, definitely I think what happened was, when you're a woman, when you're a Black woman in particular, you have that going against you. And everybody just look around television. You usually see blonde white women on TV, like they're in the anchor jobs, they're in the hosting jobs. That is what is considered to be the look. So, they already ain't checking for you at all. So you have to do what you can to put yourself on their radar, because they're naturally not going to look for you. And then just being a woman, period, is like, I don't know how this ever became a thing, but some people think what you know about sports is defined by your genitalia. and it's not.
Listen,
So
listen, I play basketball, so you can imagine the stuff I see about playing it. So
look, I see Ashley Twitter checking in all the time, trying to tell a WNBA player who has spent her whole life playing the game that they can beat her. And I'm just like, bro, you ain't worked out about 7 years, but you gonna tell somebody who a professional.
They played in the YMCA church league, and every time
they played in LA Fitness trying to tell you they can beat you.
I feel you on this completely. I get it. All right, so Jemele Hill is unbothered. Couldn't be a more perfect name, and it's simple but genius. Tell me how that name came about. Obviously, it's an obvious name, but that doesn't just happen where just an obvious name pops out the sky.
No, it is. It's obvious in that you know what it means, but it was very intentional for me to call my podcast that, because this was kind of the first major thing with my total stamp on it that I did when I left ESPN, and it reflected where I was in my life in an unbothered state of mind. That didn't mean I wasn't passionate about things. That didn't mean I didn't care. But what I was over is caring what everybody else thought about what I thought. Okay. So I was over that part of it. And I think it's something that comes with a combination of age, wisdom, and experience, where you reach a point where you stop letting certain things bother you. And so I've never been somebody who, was necessarily bothered by what people said, but I was at a point in my career, finally, where I was working with people and not for people. I made the transition from really journalist to businesswoman. And so all of that helped me become unbothered. And so I thought it was very appropriate to have a podcast that was called Jemele Hill is Unbothered, because that's truly where I am.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so throughout your career, you have went toe to toe with, I'm gonna call it the machine. And I personally think that you've won because you're thriving right now. Okay, so hindsight is 2020. Would you have changed anything, like knowing how everything played out? Would you have done anything different?
Not a thing. I'm not somebody. I don't really believe in regrets. And the reason I don't believe in them is not because I don't think people don't make mistakes or that I don't make mistakes. I made a ton of mistakes at ESPN, but the difference is that why those don't become regrets is because I felt like I was in a better place after I made those mistakes. So I either learned something, I either grew in some way. One of those two things usually happens. So it's hard for me to look back at anything that was done and say, I wish that hadn't happened. If that doesn't happen, I'm not here in this office talking to you, So yeah, so it's
preach to me. I'm the choir. You gotta preach.
So I'm not gonna. I don't take back anything that happened.
Don't, because I'm glad. I was hoping that was gonna be deep down inside. I was hoping you would say no. So I'm glad.
Definitely.
But sometimes the most interesting conversations are people who have like polar opposite views, and you, as well as a lot of Americans, have voiced your displeasure with Trump and his administration. And you are the people's chance. So for the culture, would you ever do a sit-down interview with President Trump? For the culture now.
For the culture. Well, here's the thing, this is a rule that I have on my podcast. The rule of, people I choose to interview on my podcast, I don't choose it based off whether or not you agree with me. I choose it based off, do you have a story to tell? Do you have something thoughtful to say? The one thing I don't do is capitulate to stupid. And part of the reason why I wouldn't personally sit down with him is because he's a liar, he's indecent, and he's proven himself to be a master manipulator of misinformation. And I can't really have a conversation with somebody who's just perpetually dishonest. And so I know that for a lot of folks who watch some of his news conferences, who are just screaming at the TV, why doesn't this reporter ask him this? Why don't they ask him that? Why don't they challenge him more? One, the president gets to pick who asked him a question. And it's not a surprise that he typically tends to pick people who have a more favorable opinion of him, which is how the White House press corps has changed a lot in this administration, because there's a lot of media outlets that would never have seen the inside of the White House press conference, but because they're favorable and they're very right wing, they do. So when we do see the president ask the question, shout out to Yamiche Alcindor, who's a godsend. She noticed what he does. He gets very combative. He lies. He doesn't ask the question. And because it's a situation where it's a one-way mic, you're hearing more of his response than what is the truth. And so I think for him, one, he never sit down with me because he only usually sits down with very favorable interviewers. But even if that happened, I would feel like I would be doing a disservice because you're not gonna get the answer that will satisfy you
He's
as
gonna
to
be
why
so
he's back. Yeah,
close
why he's
minded.
back. I mean, it's gonna wind up being train wreck television because
and that's why. So, but to your point, that's exactly why I would, because typically he wouldn't. So if some chance happened that he had to sit down with the people's champ, I just would have loved to see personally. Because I like your point. Don't even, like my parents would say, ignore the ignorant, because people won't know who it is from afar. So I completely get that. And on a more serious matter, a lot of us have seen that the video of George Floyd that is circulating on the internet. And for those that haven't, George Floyd was a Black man who was killed yesterday by a Minnesota police officer. And earlier today, you tweeted that this is a reminder: what happened to George Floyd is what Amy Cooper hoped would happen to Christian Cooper. Can you elaborate on that so we can understand what you mean by that?
So I'm sure the other thing that went viral, and it's a shame that these two stories are going viral at the same time, because we're talking about the death and the murder of one Black man and what could have been potentially the death of another one. So Amy Cooper was a woman who was confronted by a Black man in a park. She had her dog unleashed, which is illegal to do in Central Park. And he was reminding her that she needed to leash her dog. He didn't say it confrontationally. He just told her what it was, like, you need to leash your dog. So in response, she begins to attack him and threaten to call the police. And what she said was, I'm going to tell him you threatened me. So she already called with the intention of basically being a white woman in distress, knowing that that's a big dog whistle, so that she could get the police called on him. And as soon as she called, because he has this all on video, she's like, there's an African American man, because she made sure to tell him it was somebody Black.
She did.
Okay, she wanted that part out there real fast.
Like, let's get serious, guys.
Let's get serious. This is a Black man in Central Park. And so she threatened to call the police. Now, as a result of this, she has lost her job. They took away the dog that she had because she was practically strangling this dog. It was really sad. Peter got involved. It was like, tell you what we're not going to do. So all this is happening. And then, as you just mentioned, what happened with George Floyd, who had a police officer in Minneapolis killed him, knee on his neck. And this was over a forgery. So this, I mean, and even if
it was eerily similar because
to Eric Garner.
He was saying, I can't breathe. He said it multiple times. So it was eerily similar. And it was just I saw the tweet and I knew what you meant, but I thought that tweet was so profound because that was the plan.
Yes. So I mean, just so people understand, whenever we're having this conversation about police brutality, people are always frustrated because they wonder, why is it that, frankly, white America cannot understand, why we are so up in arms about state-sanctioned violence against us? Well, the reason why you see a very piddly response from white America is because they think the police should be used this way on us. So that's why she called the police on Christian Cooper in Central Park and led with him being a Black man, because she hoped what happened to him is what happened to Mr. Floyd. And it's I mean, shameful is not even in the word, not even the word for it. But I hope with these two cases, and even with what happened to Ahmaud Arbery and what happened to Breonna Taylor, that people understand that while, yes, it is true that we have all sorts of violence that are in our neighborhood and things happen. Yep. See, you got it. All sorts of violence and things that, that happen in our neighborhood. But police officers in particular are charged with protecting us. Okay. They have a gun. They have the license to kill. So they need to be more responsible than they have been. And unfortunately, there's been very little accountability when it comes to police harming Black people.
Love it. Okay, so love it. That's why I wanted to touch on it, because I saw your tweet and I'm like, oh, so I wanted to say something about it. But let's switch gears a little bit. There's a lot of talk about Disney World being the landing spot.
Yeah.
They've also expressed that they would love to host the ladies as well in the W. What are your thoughts on this whole Bubble City concept?
I saw that Damian Lillard was in here. I was like, maybe we should ask him.
I know, right? Damian Lillard has entered the chat. Because Damian Lillard said, basically, he's saying if he doesn't have a chance to make the playoffs, because they might have to do an abbreviated season. So if he doesn't have a chance to make the playoffs, he would rather just forego those 7 to 10, how many ever games that they may have to play. He would just rather not do that and just go, like, just not come back.
Well,
what are your thoughts?
I think that the quarantine bubble is the only way we're going to see an NBA season. And people have to understand what's at stake here, because I know there's been a lot of people who have said just call off the season. But it's not that simple, because we're talking about millions of dollars in television money, and we're talking about the NBA taking a loss in the billions if they don't play a season. So there is money to be considered, and of course, money does not take lots of money, but money does not take the priority over health, of course. And so there's a part of me, while I understand how it could possibly be achieved, that we also as a public, and I wonder if you're asking too much, not just us, but the athletes themselves, are you okay with a game may start and they may say Rajon Rondo DNP COVID? I mean, is that okay? I mean,
wow.
I don't know that it is, you know what I'm saying? And so we have to, as the public, get used to that being possible. Like, what if you have a situation where a major athlete misses the entire playoffs because they have gotten
that was kind of my question with the thing, because you see a lot of different talks for over multiple leagues about there's the foreign players having problems getting back, with the regulations and everything.
Yep.
Well, what if on a team one of the foreign players is their main player? Like that, I don't think because people are like, okay, well, if they come late, they'll come late. No, it doesn't work like that. Chemistry, team building, it doesn't work like your star player just shows up. Even when Allen Iverson was talking about practice, he had already done training camp. He had already been a part of the team. It doesn't just work that way. So,
and then not only that, like, what do you do? However the championship is, I mean, if the championship's decided, like, how do you put that into context in NBA history or even WNBA history, when you talking about a season where, players took months off and then came back? There's going to be some questions, unfortunately, of legitimacy. I mean, when it was a strike shortened season before, people were talking trash about that. Like, it was only a 50-game season. They got a real champion.
It's called the asterisk. They put an asterisk beside
They put an asterisk by it, right? So it's like, then you potentially compromise the value of your championship. So it's really complicated. I understand why they want to continue with the season because of the money. I just wonder if this might be one of those things where being more prudent is the answer. I mean, the fact is, look, we can't be fooling ourselves. Sports will not return to normal until there's a vaccine. It's just that simple.
See, so I know, and I'm the athlete, so I'm torn too, because I want to get out there, but I understand I'm in a different position because the NBA, they've already started the season. So I haven't started yet, but I just think about, for me, if I had came off of a bad game and then we hit the pandemic, I'm ready to play. Like, so with the NBA, there's probably different people in different phases, people trying to get a contract year, and there's so many different things into it. And speaking of the NBA, LeBron and Jordan fans have been in a tussle. And
Jesus.
this last dip, And Charles Barkley said that Kobe, not LeBron, is the closest thing ever that he's seen to MJ. What do you think set everyone off about this documentary, and why isn't Kobe in the discussion more? Like, what set everyone off?
Well, I think when it comes to, like, Michael Jordan stands are a unique breed. Really, all stands of, like, the great players, with the exception of some. I mean, but when it comes to Michael, MJ fans, Kobe fans, and LeBron stands, it's like they should all get into a gladiator arena and fight each other for supremacy, because
facts.
Inevitably,
it's crazy.
It's very crazy. So, the thing is, at least I feel fortunate because I've been able to see all of them play, and at a time where I could put their errors into perspective. Now, I understand what Barkley is saying, because I've said the same thing. It's like, when you look at the way he plays, his style, mentality, Kobe is very much the closest thing. Like, they are twins.
Well, because he made his game off of that image or that template. So,
I mean, body style, just moves, and the way that Kobe was so good at, like, reinventing himself, much in the way that Jordan did defensively. I mean, it was just, there's so much alike. To me, if the LeBron's going to own all the most significant records in history by the time it's all said and done. So I understand that part of it. But to me, because what happens when you're having this greatest player ever debate, you're going to wind up splitting hairs. You're going to wind up picking nits, as they say. So if I had to pick a nit with LeBron, it would be probably really kind of two things. It would be one, the finals against Dallas. That to me is something that Michael Jordan, like, that would never happen to him. It didn't happen to him. We saw it, right?
That was what a lot of people said, though. That one is where a lot of the chatter started to happen. Like, superstars don't behave this way. And, so that series really
he had a very poor finals. Very poor by his standard. Very poor, right? So that's one part. The other thing, and I'm going to piggyback off a point my Detroit homie Jalen Rose said, and this is true. So as everybody knows, when Jordan played, nobody else could win. I mean, he had 2 three-peats, right? Nobody else. He kept Barkley, Gary Payton, he kept Clyde Drexler, a ton of players could not win because Michael Jordan was doing other than winning. Fast forward to LeBron. You have Kawhi has 2, Steph got 3, KD got 2. Other players win all the time. Okay. And it's just he's been, arguably one of the most dominant, but he's not. Michael Jordan was that far above the next best player. I mean, it was like, here, some weeks people be like, Kawhi's better than LeBron. Some weeks people say, like, it's other people in the conversation. Some people say KD sometimes. Yeah. There was nobody else in the conversation with Jordan. It was him. That was it.
By himself.
By himself. So,
okay, I like that. Okay. All right, so I like to end with just some quick hitters. They're random as ever. Okay, and we'll just start with the first one. All-time favorite athletes.
Ooh, all-time. Well, it's probably going to be, I think it's probably going to be either Jerry Rice or Joe Montana, but I'm going to say Jerry Rice.
Because we got a 49ers fan here.
Even though Jerry Rice, it's actually 3 that come to mind. It's Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, and Isaiah Thomas.
We'll take top 3. Three.
Yeah, it's probably those 3 for sure. Jerry Rice blocked me on Twitter.
Wait, why did he block you on Twitter? How can your favorite block you on Twitter?
I think when your fave blocks you, it's almost like a better badge of honor.
Why did he block you? You know why. Why did he block
I do. I got blocked because I don't know if y'all remember this, but Jerry Rice actually did a Popeye's chicken endorsement. And he wore a chicken helmet on his head. I mean, it was just some old Amos and Andy. It was just so bad.
No. Oh no.
It was so bad. And the jokes was funny. I'm sorry, they was funny. And
I got them jokes off.
I got them jokes. And next thing I know, I was blocked. And I was like, oh, I wasn't at him, but I wasn't like at Jerry Jones.
Listen, you're popular. If you, doesn't matter who you at this point, if you tweet it, it will get seen by that person.
This is true. And he saw that. So my fave has blocked me. News you didn't know.
So now that needs to be your single answer for who is your fave, Jerry Rice. Like that.
Yes, you're right. Because he blocked me. Look, I'm blocked by 2.
That starts circulating. You guys tweet Jerry Rice. Jemele Hill said he's her fave.
Right. But he got to unblock me because, I mean, I might have some more chicken jokes. So, no, he ain't got to unblock me at all.
You going to get these jokes off, but that's kind of the thing with comedians. You got to know they going to get the jokes off regardless of the situation.
Yes.
So, December 21 is your birthday. Do people give you a combo birthday, Christmas gift? They got to, right?
Hell no.
What?
No.
4 days apart?
No, I'm going to tell you what I will not stand for, what I've never stood for. And I told my husband this too when we were dating. I was like, if you want to see me at DEF CON, don't ever get me a gift that represents
4
both.
days apart?
Don't matter. I don't care if it's 4 hours. No, separate gifts. Those are 2 different occasions, okay? They are not the same, right? So luckily, I was very fortunate. My grandmother, may she rest in peace, her birthday was December 22nd. She knew about that one gift life, okay? And she was like, I'll be damn, my grandbaby go through that. So she
said,
always...
I struggled my whole life.
That's right. All my life, I had to fight for 2 separate gifts. And she was like, I ain't gonna...
You're not gonna give my baby 2 gifts.
See what I'm saying? This will not be a generational struggle. So this is what she did. She made sure I had separate gifts and everybody else had to follow along. So if my damn grandma could do it,
that goes for everybody. Don't send her a happy belated birthday, Merry Christmas tweet, nothing.
They better be 2 separate ones.
2 separate. Okay. So what's your favorite show out right now?
Oh man, favorite show out right now? Well, of course I'm all up in the Insecure Hive because that's the show of the moment.
Oh yes, okay. Yeah, and season 2 is about to start, and you have who?
I have Yvonne Orji. She is going to be on the podcast.
Come
But we start,
on.
yeah. So she told a lot of great stuff about the show, and it was when we taped the podcast. It was when it was right after Molly had been her most Mollyest.
And
So,
those who, if you know, you
you
know.
know, right? So it was pretty interesting. But yes, I'm deep into Insecure right now. Between that and because I'm finishing my book. Between Insecure, Bar Rescue, and Love It or List It. Those are that's all I'm watching right now.
Dallas, Snook, and Diddy, Love Her List is their fave. So okay, or maybe they don't like. I don't know which one they want. Sorry, Snook. So anyway, is there a audition process? I want to be your partner in a spades tournament at a certain point. I hear that, like, because I'm not with the games, and I feel that vibe for you. I saw your video where somebody was running to Boston, and I felt that in my core. So, what's good? Is there an audition process? Can I be your partner one time for the one time?
No audition process necessary. You automatically in, all right? Especially, I imagine, like, as a professional athlete, like, I'm sure y'all play a lot of cards.
Oh, come on.
So athletes are, like, always some of the best, card players. So with that, that's all the resume you really need.
Love it. All right.
Oh, Em said you got to be the backup because I'm her partner.
No, ma'am. You see how they try to block my blessing just that quick? I just got on.
Yeah, don't worry. I got a whole roster. So
here's speaking of Eb, okay, so this is a WNBA related question, but Diana Taurasi made a call to action for basically females with money, and you, my friend, you have money. So I'm just curious. You got a little change. You talked about that TV money, but no, I'm just curious if they brought back. I think it's all relational. So if they brought back the Detroit Shock, would you be interested in that? Like as far as
of course I would. Yeah, no, I mean, the Shock had an amazing legacy there. I mean, he won a title. I mean, it was amazing. But in terms of my support, though, the only problem is I live in Los Angeles now. So, like, I would want to get season tickets. Like, I want season tickets to the Sparks. Like, trust me, when they come back, I am getting season tickets. Not just any season tickets. I'm getting courtside joints because I never had courtside joints to nothing.
Make it rain on us.
Yeah. I've been to games for sure, but I was like, I never held season tickets for anything, but I want season tickets for the Sparks. So my only disappointment would be if the Shock came back, I wouldn't be able to personally support them because I don't live there anymore.
Yeah. Okay. But I like that because I agree. I think, like, I watch Shark Tank. I'm an avid fan of that show, and they always talk about they have to invest in something that, like, is important to them or tied to them, or you're not going to have interest in your investment. So
right.
And so since you have done a lot of marketing and media, shouts to Eb, what do you think is something that the WBA could do to get more exposure?
Well, honestly, I've had this debate 1,000 times, and people debate, is it the chicken or is it the egg? As in, one thing I can tell you I'm firmly against is the dunking thing, nah. So, I mean, only if y'all wanted it, but like.
No, but yes, I agree. It's not.
Yeah. It doesn't, like, people, that doesn't matter. And I think I resent more the premise of it, that basically if you guys modeled your game more like the men's game, that will get
watch it.
You will be able to fit in. It's like, no, that's not why. Now, people dunk during the game because that's their gift. Candace Parker did, that's their gift. That's fine. But it doesn't need to be some lowering the rims and all that. That to me cheapens the experience. So it doesn't need to be that. But when talking about the chicken and the egg, I mean, honestly, I think the onus is on the media more so than the players. I covered the WNBA for 2 years, the first 2 years of its existence when I lived in North Carolina, the Charlotte Sting, right? And I covered a lot of women's basketball there, period. Yeah, I covered a lot of Dawn Staley, who, by the way, incredible spades player. True story, Dawn Staley almost ran on Boston on me, not even playing.
Wait a minute!
Yeah, that's it. She can play some cards. She did whip my tail. Yes. Her and I think it was Rhonda Mapp. Anyway.
Wow. So, and you'll never forget it.
Now, how could you? I was like, I can't even tell nobody at home this happened. They might not let me back in the city of Detroit.
You're going to lose your card.
I'm going to lose my card. But anyway, so what I noticed when I cover, women's basketball, and for that matter, whenever I've written about women's basketball, the players are personable, interesting. You get great access. It's a matter of the media, frankly, taking more responsibility for their lack of coverage than it is you guys having to do something extra and additional. Diana Taurasi is an incredible player. Yeah. an amazing personality. Okay,
Yes,
as a lot of them are.
I
Like,
agree.
she with the you know what's all the time, and I'm here
Yes,
for it. And unfortunately, these are things that get overlooked. I mean, you don't have to be Diana Taurasi necessarily, but the
right.
personalities in the league, the style, like all the things that you would love about the men's game or love about covering athletes are already there. It's just a matter of media companies have to stop being, frankly, lazy and patronizing and cover more of the W.
Love it. Listen, love it, love it. Thank you for coming. Oh, wait, let me ask you real quick because this is a hot topic I'm asking everybody. What are your 2 favorite cereals? This is
Ooh,
listen, people feel
dang,
strongly about this stuff.
dang, like that. Okay, Captain Crunch Berries. That's one.
Okay, okay.
And the other one, I mean, they couldn't be probably more different, but Cinnamon Life. It's
Cinnamon
probably my
what?
Cinnamon Life, the cereal Life. They have cinnamon flavor.
Oh, no, I don't know if I've ever heard that.
Yeah,
Wow.
cinnamon Life.
Okay,
But
Cinnamon
the
Life
Crunch Berries
and
is
Captain Crunch Berry Edition.
Crunch Berries is the all Crunch Berry box.
Yeah.
Undefeated.
Okay, so people are saying yes to the Crunch Berry, so I guess that's a thing. Okay.
Yeah, it's a
Okay,
thing.
so I guess you passed, but thank you. I'm so excited for this because you were just as dope as I thought you were going to be. Thank you to everybody that was so hyped for me to talk to her. Like you were sharing in my excitement. Thank you guys. And Jemele Hill is forever unbothered. Okay?
That's right. Check it out on Spotify, y'all. Thank you.
Yes, sir.